Yeah. How long have you served as acting? 7 months. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Further, Attorney General Department.
I worked with David Andrew. I was the chief of the district court, and I think on the hiring committee that did make that immediate judgment about Laurie. And I'm not going to repeat but endorse many of the things that David said. But I also want to add, I believe that they would jog together during lunch hour. I think he left that part out probably because Laurie got back a little before David. She's an excellent attitude. So I want to just add a few comments. So I was the chief of the district court, and when Laurie, district court prosecutors, and when Laurie first joined the office, it very quickly became apparent to me, number one, how intelligent she was, but also how intellectually honest she was. And that's such an important piece of what we would do as prosecutors every day. So that if I were making assignments in terms of what sessions she would be covering or what kind of difficult cases she would be making judgments on, I knew that I didn't have to second guess whether she was motivated by, say, fear of trying a case or indecision or capitulating to some other cause, that I always knew that I could count on Laurie to simply be doing the right thing with the case. And that was a very refreshing thing to be able to feel as district court chief, that I could rely on Laurie in circumstances like that. And then I have been in private practice since 1994, the end of '94, so I was only with Laurie for those 2 years that I could depend on her. Maybe it was about 3 years. And so I can talk about many years in which we were on opposite sides, and then I can tell you that my sense of trust of her judgment in the way we interacted when I was a defense attorney and she was a prosecutor was also just unquestionable. What I was struck by as a defense attorney in my interactions with her is that she was basically confident enough to be able to assess a case and assess my argument about a situation, whether it was a Fourth Amendment issue, whether it was reasonable doubt, whether it was a sentencing presentation about somebody that I was trying to get Laurie on board as a prosecutor that would then be having her input with the court, that I felt like Laurie respected and trusted a genuine argument coming from the defense part, that she understood that this wasn't a battle just for the sake of the battle, that she understood her power as a prosecutor and the influence that she could have on the court and on making sure that justice was done in the case. And so that at the same time, I know that if I was representing a very dangerous person or if I had something that wouldn't really be very genuine, I knew not to bother wasting my breath with Laurie, because I knew I didn't want to in any way compromise my ability to deal with Laurie and take her for as honest and intelligent a person as she was. So that brings me to the point of being here, which is to say I cannot think of anybody that I would trust more to be exercising judgment on the district court bench than Laurie MacLeod. I think she's demonstrated it in every aspect in which she has served in the criminal justice system, and I have no doubt that she would do the same on the bench. So, thank you.
Thank you, Attorney Barnett. I have a question for you.
Sure.
In your years as a defense attorney, have you handled a lot of domestic violence individuals?
I'm sure I have, yeah.
Did you have any cases as Attorney MacLeod managed as a prosecutor and you as the defense attorney?
Again, I'm sure that I'm not prepared to say specifically yes, Commonwealth versus Jones, Commonwealth versus Smith, but
do you remember, there's not a specific case I'm looking for,
sure,
or anything, but just in general.
Undoubtedly I have.
Did you represent more men or women, or do you recollect?
No, I don't. But in terms of, that's a good example of if I'm representing somebody and it's a domestic violence situation, there's not going to be any short shrift given by Laurie for, the clandestine danger that posed and her ability to, discern how to best protect both that person and the public generally. That is a good example of how I would have to be, genuine in my approach in terms of whether or not my client had made real efforts in terms of battery counseling or real efforts in terms of interpersonal skills, or whether or not this was just going to be a trial or somebody that Laurie would be taking the position of, this person is so violent, so dangerous, or done so many times that we're just going to trial because my goal is to incarcerate him. I mean, whatever the case might be, our relationship or my experience with Laurie was such that she would be doing the right thing. Okay?
Did you ever see whether you were representing a husband or a male versus a female, that you thought the approach from the prosecutor's side was any different, or?
I can't say that I have. No.
Let me follow up on the same area. I received an email yesterday from the Fathers at Risk.
The Fatherhood Coalition.
Yeah, the gentleman here. Are you going to ask me, Herb?
Yes, I will.
Okay.
Yeah.
And one of his points was that he had no personal issue with, if I understand correctly, Attorney MacLeod's qualifications, but he felt that her involvement in a domestic violence project would bias her in a way that would affect her impartiality. And so my question is, based on your experience as a defense attorney, can you comment on whether or not you or the perception of your own experience or the perception of Attorney MacLeod was such that she would have a sort of an agenda position on issues of domestic violence versus the way in which you otherwise described her as being someone who would call them as she sees them?
Right.
Do you understand the question?
It's a very long question.
Well,
but I do understand the point. And there's no question in my mind that Laurie would not be bringing an agenda to the bench. I think an agenda is an unfair way to characterize Laurie's strength. You need to hold on to that?
I'm just giving some thing on there.
Sure.
All right. Thank you. I'm sorry.
So, if you go back to the late 80s and early 90s, when district attorneys' offices were first developing protocols to deal with domestic violence, to pass statutes that dealt with mandatory arrest, to even create divisions within the DA's office, this was a cutting-edge time in which you were bringing out of the home and into the public the idea that domestic violence was a crime, and that it was going to be tackled by a community and not kept secret or something that the alleged victim would feel shamed for. And so I do recall that Laurie was very dedicated to the idea of protecting people in relationships, and it never dawned on me that it was a gender issue. It was a domestic violence issue, something that needed to be attacked in our community as a whole. And we have evolved in the last 20 years in the criminal justice system so that I think we do attack that issue with relative success, both in terms of the alleged offender and in terms of protecting the victim. And I have never, ever seen Laurie demonstrate a bias within that system and within those ideologies. I think it's all about, as I said before, doing the right thing, protecting the public, period.